Some went mad upon seeing this painting, while others charged at it with a knife. Sacredness and ugliness. At the tip of Repin's brush, the boundary between the two collapses. He carves out the pain of an era hidden beneath a brilliant sun. He rejects pretty lies. Instead, he preserves humanity's raw screams and madness, along with the dignity crushed beneath the floor. What you are about to face is not the legacy of a painter, but our own hidden abyss. Ilya Repin, he stripped the human soul bare with his brush. The works he left behind now gaze back at us in return. The midday heat scorches the land by the Volga river. Groans like the roar of beasts echo through the air. 11 men, with thick leather straps around their chests, are hauling a massive barge. This work elevated Repin to the ranks of world-class masters is not merely a scene of labour. It is a grand panorama of the weight of life that humans must bear. What dominates the painting is the endless horizon and the gentle curves created by the labourers. This composition evokes the illusion that the fatigue of labour will never cease and will repeat eternally. The labourers are walking out diagonally toward the viewer. This is a compositional device that allows the viewer to directly feel the tension of this massive rope without any filter. Look at the face of Kanin, the former priest standing at the front. With a gaze that seems to transcend everything, he silently accepts his suffering. Following him is a sturdy man suppressing his anger, and an old man who looks ready to collapse from exhaustion. The most out-of-place figure is the boy Larionov in the centre, the only one who raises his head and looks into the distance, as if the leather strap is unfamiliar and painful. He fidgets with the rope with his hands. In the swamp-like despair, the existence of this boy who alone straightens his back and questions tomorrow symbolises the last bastion of human dignity that remains unbroken, even in tragedy. To paint these figures, Repin lived and ate with actual labourers for months, observing every nuance of their being. For him, realism was not about pitying the unfortunate. It was about respecting the individuality of the human spirit that endures in its own way, even in the face of immense suffering. Ultimately, this painting is not a scene of hauling a barge, but a magnificent march of life, where diverse lives are bound together by a single rope, struggling upstream against the river called destiny. This painting has neither noble saints nor elegant nobles. It is filled only with the raucous laughter of the world's roughest men. When the Ottoman Sultan proposed surrender, the Cossack cavalryman wrote a reply laced with all sorts of unspeakable profanities. To visualise the energy of this laughter, Repin arranged the figures in a circular formation. The viewer follows this spiral composition and discovers different layers of laughter. One who clutches his belly and laughs, one who snickers maliciously, one who roars heartily. Repin observed their laughter for a full 11 years. For him, this laughter was not mere amusement. It was the wild, untamed freedom of humanity that refuses to lose its humour even in the face of great power's threats. In this work, aesthetics is defined not as orderly beauty, but as an explosion of uncontrollable vitality. A woman stands like a ghost in a dark room. Stripped of power by her brother and confined to a convent, this is Princess Sophia. Her dishevelled hair and unfocused eyes reveal that she is no longer in her right mind. Repin delved obsessively into how rage distorts the human body. Her tightly pressed lips and tensed arms create a sense of imminent explosion. One must pay attention to the window. The corpses of soldiers executed for supporting her hang from the window frame. The still air inside collides with the brutal execution site outside within a single frame. Through this grotesque contrast, Repin philosophically indicts how the monster of power destroys the human soul. The observer witnesses simultaneously the suffocating claustrophobia and madness unfolding in this cramped room. Look at this overwhelming crowd that fills the screen. It may seem like a scene where Russian faith erupts, but Repin has compressed within this procession all the contradictions of contemporary society. And the cloud of dust that cuts diagonally across the painting visualizes the immense scale and dynamism of the procession. However, the observer must capture the disconnection hidden within that vibrant movement. The mounted police with whips, the priests in splendid robes, and the ragged common people barely following the procession at the far left of the screen. They walk the same path, yet run on parallel lines that can never converge. Repin's gaze stops on a boy in the crowd. This hunchbacked boy from the lower class desperately tries to move forward to seek divine grace, but an official's club blocks his way. This cruel moment when even religious salvation is blocked by class, Repin depicted calmly yet most painfully. For Repin, realism was not about copying the visible landscape, but about exposing the immense injustices hidden behind that landscape. The scorching sun, the hazy dust, and within it, the writhing desires and pains of thousands. This work is not a march toward God, but a desperate and honest record of the heart, directed toward the solid walls of class created by humans. The tragedy began for trivial and absurd reasons. On a day in November 1581, Tsar Ivan IV assaulted his pregnant daughter-in-law for her allegedly immodest attire. In response, his enraged son Tsarevich Ivan vehemently protested to his father, triggering the Tsar's long-festering paranoia about his son's growing power. With the iron-tipped staff he held, he struck his son's temple. A single, impulsive blow. That is the entirety of this horrific scene. To recreate this terrible moment, Repin reportedly visited actual slaughterhouses to study the colour of blood. The carpet on the floor is a deep, murky red, but the blood gushing from the son's wound is a vivid, bright crimson. These two shades of red with different temperatures emphasise that the tragedy is an ongoing event that just occurred, pulling the viewer into the heart of the scene. The father's hands cradling his son are the most poignant point in this painting. One hand desperately wraps around the son's waist, while the other presses against the temple in a futile, pitiful attempt to stop the gushing blood. However, the son's unfocused eyes and limp body indicate that life is already slipping away. What remains in the wake of that thunderous rage is the realization of being a murderer who killed his own child, and the scream of a terrified human being. Look at the iron-tipped staff helplessly abandoned in the corner of the frame. What was a symbol of absolute power just moments ago is now nothing more than an instrument of sin that can never be washed away. Even the Tsar who commanded the world is exposed by Repin as a powerless being in the face of the cruel irreversibility of time.
Through this tragic composition, he is forever captured on canvas, the eternal destruction brought by human impulse and the weight of guilt that can never be healed.
Repin's paintings are not kind. He does not allow viewers to feel comfortable, constantly dragging them before uncomfortable truths. Sometimes to a blood-soaked scene, sometimes to the room of a madwoman, sometimes to a drunken gathering rife with profanity. But when we endure that discomfort and gaze at his paintings, we finally encounter not the human wrapped in fancy packaging, but the true face of humanity. Repin's art was not appreciation, but experience, not comfort, but impact. The heavy blow he threw 150 years ago, one beyond mere formal significance, still poses a valid question to us today, in a world where the fake mimics the real, forcing us to confront what truly matters.